Hey guys, welcome to Fun and Gun. We got our GForce arms, Huckleberry LVR357 Magnum on the table again today. We're going to go ahead and go over some of the modifications I've done to the action on this particular gun. I'm going to go ahead and say it up front. Any modifications you make to your gun is at your own risk. This is just a few things I've done to mine that did improve the gun quite a bit in my opinion. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I didn't actually come up with these ideas. I actually found this on a YouTube channel called TVTV Canada. I'm going to go ahead and drop a few links to his videos in the description. He goes in quite a bit more depth of how this works and what you need to do in his video. I'm just going to go over the modifications I did to this particular gun and do I think that it was worth it. So I'm going to start off by showing you that this gun is unloaded. Nothing in the tube here, nothing in the chamber as you can see there. So I'm going to go ahead and start off at the front of the gun here, and this is something I believe I mentioned in the original video, and something I did learn from his video is this gun is essentially oversprung in the mag tube. And what I mean by that is they actually make these guns or guns like this in a 20-inch and an 18-inch barrel. And to save money, they go ahead and use the same magazine spring in all three of the guns. So when you end up with a 16-inch, you end up with an oversprung tube, making it quite difficult to get rounds to go into the tube through your loading gate here without trying to pop back out. So this is really the easiest fix there, the modification I'm going to go over here, and the cheapest one as well because it is free. You're going to go ahead and spin your plug out right here. Be careful not to shoot it across the room because it's obviously going to be under spring tension with the mag tube spring up against it. So what you're going to do is you're going to get that all the way out of the gun there, and he talks about cutting off 15 coils in his video. I went in somewhere around the 13, 14 area. Didn't get too carried away with it. You just want to make sure the gun still functions afterwards. But one more thing I'm going to go ahead and go over is when you start modifying parts of your guns, I like to go online and just be sure I can, number one, get a replacement part for what I'm going to be modifying easily, and number two, how much is it going to cost me. So that's something I usually try to do when I'm modifying any gun, is to see how much it's going to cost me to replace whatever part I'm wanting to mess with. So I figure that's something I go ahead and talk about right there. But that's an easy modification, and in my opinion, it's well worth it. Just cut a few coils off that spring because it's going to make it significantly easier to put the rounds into your tube there. Now I will say on the GForce version of this gun, I don't believe the Rossi or the LVR357 has these cuts, but it has a cut in the front and a ramp in the back. And that does significantly make it easier to put rounds into this particular gun. But I went ahead and did the other modification he talks about in his video, which is actually modifying your loading gate leaf spring, which if you didn't know, this loading gate here is essentially a long leaf spring that runs back to this screw right here, and there's just kind of a bar in behind right here that's connected to this, and that's what gives it its springiness. So to go ahead and make this a little bit easier to load on top of trimming the spring, you can go ahead and go in here, and this is the modification that if you're not comfortable disassembling the gun any farther than just popping that tube out, you might want to have a gunsmith do this. And I did look, and this part's about $60 or $70 to replace, so getting a little risky here with it. But you're going to take your loading gate door out all the way here, and you're going to take and cut a kind of a half moon shape out of the top of it. If you want to see what exact depth to go ahead and cut it at, you can check out here, like I said in the description, or in the description below, there will be a video, and he goes over it more in depth. I want to say it was like 0.8 of a millimeter or 0.8 of an inch you can cut out of it. You don't want to get too carried away with it, but it makes it significantly lighter to go ahead and put a round into the tube, and it makes it easier to get that in there without it kind of trying to pop back out. So that modification, in my opinion, is, like I said, it's a little bit more risky because if you mess this up, it's kind of expensive, but it is well worth it once you get it right to make this overall experience of this gun a lot better when you go to load it. So that is two of the main modifications I did here. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the spring kit here from Lee's Gunsmithing. It's actually made for a Rossi 92 or an R92, and all the videos that you see on the TVTV Canada channel that I have linked in the description are also talking about a Rossi 92, but they do share this gun shares the same action with that gun, so this spring kit did work in it just fine. So we're gonna go ahead and get into what comes in this spring kit, and do I think it's worth the price I paid for it. I believe after shipping and tax I got about $35 in this at the time of filming this video. So the first spring we got here is your main spring or your hammer spring, and the idea behind replacing this is because, go ahead and put the hammer back forward. with a lighter spring in that, when the bolt comes back, when you're pushing the lever forward, it's going to lighten the action because you have less force needed to move the hammer out of the way. And it also is going to remove a little bit of the tension off of your sear engagement, so you're going to get a little bit better trigger with that. While we're talking about the trigger, that's another modification I did that was in his video. I did stone the top of this trigger bow a little bit when I had it apart on the sear engagement, just lightly to kind of clean it up a little bit, get a little bit more crisp trigger out of it. So that is something else I did. And when we're talking about the trigger here, we'll go ahead and get the trigger spring out here. It's kind of a leaf spring. And I will say this is the only part inside the gun that I found any significant burrs on, but the way it's made, it did not affect anything, and that's just where they cut it off here. You got some little burrs. But this is the factory leaf spring that came in this gun, and went ahead and replaced it with the one that came with this kit. And that is the main thing I wanted this kit for, was to make the trigger better, and combined with the hammer spring and that lighter spring. I'm gonna go ahead and show you, like I said, gun is unloaded. I'm gonna go ahead and show you that you still have the same over travel and everything, but this trigger's so light now. It's around, it's not super light, don't want to get too carried, you know, but it's around, I would say, 2.5 to 3 pounds now, when before it was around the 5 to 6 pound area. So the trigger is significantly better, and that's really what I was looking for out of this trigger kit, this spring kit here. And we're gonna go ahead and get into a few more springs you get here, which is this spring right here, which is this spring right here, goes in behind your plunger right here, and that plunger is the lever safety plunger, and it just holds your lever closed when you have it in the closed position. And you have to overcome the force coming up with the lever and down with the lever. So by putting a lighter spring in that, it therefore makes the action a lot easier to run. Then the final spring you get in your kit here is your ejector spring, and this is actually a pretty nice modification because I went ahead and did what he talked about in his video and trimmed the length of that spring down just a little bit to make it, number one, is it makes it easier to install. Number two, with it being lighter and you trimming it a little bit more, making it a little bit even lighter than it was to start with, when you go to when the gun goes to eject the case, it does not fling the case quite as far away, and it makes it way easier if you're looking to pick your brass up afterwards, not to have to go hunt it, because because it lands quite a bit closer to you. Now, if you're running the action real fast, it still flings it pretty good, but still nothing like the factory ejector spring here did. But if you're just kind of playing with it, running it kind of slow, you can get the brass to fall pretty much right next to you, so it's pretty nice. So kind of just an added benefit of the spring kit if you're looking to collect your brass. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about the action itself here. And in his video, he does talk about deburring and kind of doing away with a lot of milling marks that are left over on the gun. And that is on the Rossi R92. And I will say, like I mentioned in my original video, the action of this particular gun was smooth as glass to start with. You don't have a lot of those marks, so I didn't actually end up doing any of the stoning on the bolt, or actually on the trunnion here. He talks about how this is a little bit hard to get back in. Sometimes when you go to take it apart, this one fit quite nice. Didn't have all those crazy machine lines like the Rossi one did, so I didn't mess with any of that. I just left that alone. So essentially, I stoned the top of the trigger and went ahead and did the modification to the loading gate door, the spring, and installed the spring kit. And I will say this gun was already pretty awesome before. And if I hadn't mentioned it, this is actually one of my favorite guns that I own right now. This thing is an absolute blast. So I figured throwing an extra 35 bucks onto it to kind of just slicking it up even more was definitely worth it. So if you're looking at the spring kit, you can pick that up from Lee's Gunsmithing. And like I said, $30-something is definitely worth it in my book. Just goes ahead and makes an awesome gun even better. So if that kind of helped you out there, go ahead and leave me a like on the video and drop a comment in the in the comments down there if you have any questions, and I'll try to get to you with an answer. And like I said, if you want to get it more in depth, check out TVTV Canada's videos, and go ahead and, like I said, modify at your own risk, but definitely worth it in my book. And that's all I had for you today. Okay, if you made it this far, I just want to say thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. If you're looking for more Fun and Gun right now, you can click one of the 2 recommended videos there. If you're looking for more Fun and Gun later, you can go ahead and click that there subscribe button. I sure would appreciate it. And if you're finding me from Facebook, go ahead and click that open app button at the top to make all that a lot easier, and I'll see you next time.